here today, again, with Julie Smith, which is brilliant. So Julie is a leadership coach and a keynote speaker. She is the founder of leadership consultancy Talent Sprout, and she's the author of the multi-award-winning, let's just take a moment to appreciate that, Coach Yourself Confident, Ditch the Self-Doubt Tax, Unlock Humble Confidence. And her new book is called Contagious Confidence, a leader's guide to building belief and powering performance. So first of all, welcome back, Julie.
Thank
Lovely
you very
to have
much.
you again.
Great to be here.
What is it about confidence that just sucks you in and keeps you writing about it?
It does seem to, doesn't it? I think there's probably a couple of things. So first of all, I think it's like a universal human theme. So I don't meet many people who don't recognize the sort of ups and downs in their confidence. And then secondly, I think it's a real performance variable. So there's a connection between confidence and performance in multiple directions. So, if I go into something with a sense of belief and confidence, then that helps me to perform well. Equally, if I start listening to the voice of self-doubt and start questioning myself, then I get in the way of my performance. So, confidence can fuel good performance, doubt can kind of sap performance. So, yeah, I think there's that connection as well that I've been increasingly interested in.
And it works on the receiving end as well, almost, doesn't it? That if you're conveying confidence, people tend to accept what you're doing more readily than if you are sending out signals of lack of confidence.
Yes, absolutely. Apparently, research tells us that we mix up confidence and competence. So we sort of assume, therefore, that if somebody is portraying them, a point of view, whatever it is, confidently, that it must be right and they must know what they're talking about. And of course, it's not a given. It's not always the case, but that's a sort of mental shortcut that
Why we're in the mess we're in, you could say, in fact. Let's not talk about politics. Let's talk about the relationship between book one and book two, because I do think it's a fascinating evolution of your thinking and a sort of expansion of your thinking. So for those who don't know the first book and the second book, just explain a little bit and then just talk us through what the sort of thought process behind that was.
So if I maybe start with the premise of the first book, and then I'll talk about how my thinking evolved from there. So the first book is really a sort of individual take on confidence. So a response to seeing far too many amazing leaders in my coaching room who don't see their own amazingness, and that the work to do is often to help them to close the gap between how they see themselves and the kind of reality of what they're able to do, the reality of their skills and their capabilities. So it's sort of supporting them to close that confidence gap and unlock the potential and performance that they've really got within them. The second book leans more into confidence as a performance variable from a leader's standpoint. So again, a kind of theme that I see a lot with leaders is, and I don't think this is going to change anytime soon, agendas demand kind of getting bigger and bigger, whilst the resources that they have at their fingertips stay the same or perhaps even diminish. So the sort of question that they end up grappling with is, how do I make that ambitious agenda a reality without burning out either myself or my team? So it's looking for another way to strengthen performance that isn't kind of just let's be more and more efficient and let's do more and more stuff, or cracking the whip. And my suggestion is it's about unleashing confidence. So really leaning into that idea of confidence as a performance variable. How do you help individuals to find their confidence, and how do you help that collective to really unlock the powerful sense of we've got this?
And there's a couple of things occur to me there. One is that idea about the contagion. It's like you can't do this unless you've done it for yourself. There's a sort of natural progression there, isn't it? Yeah. And the other thing is about psychological safety, because this almost feels like, when we talk about psychological safety, I don't mean it's negative, but I mean it's a sort of hygiene factor, whereas this is sort of the next stage on from that.
Yeah, I think there's I talk about psychological safety in the book as being the sort of fertile soil in which you grow confidence for the team. Because I think that if we feel safe, if we feel that we can try something new, that we aren't at risk of being judged, which is maybe the real summary of what psychological safety is, then that enables us to stretch ourselves, to do something new, to do something that's different. And it's in the doing the new thing that we might realize, we're capable of that. And we kind of grow our confidence alongside expanding our capability and expanding our repertoire of things that we can do. So I think there's a really strong connection between psychological safety and confidence.
Yeah, love that. It's one of the big issues about writing a book about confidence is that you must turn the spotlight on yourself quite, because writing a book demands a certain level. So yeah, you see where I'm going with this. What is it like in terms of your confidence writing a book about confidence?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that often it was kind of vaguely comical that I was writing about, you know, literally writing about the ebb and flow of confidence whilst
Living.
experiencing particular ebb and flow of confidence in the book writing
I mean, does that
process.
help, or do you not see it for yourself?
I think sometimes you don't see it for yourself. So sometimes I did see it for myself, kind of eventually. So I remember posting when I was writing the first book. I remember posting something. There was a picture that selfie on LinkedIn, and I literally had my sort of head in my hands, and it was a real, why am I so stuck on this section on perfectionism? Like, I appear to be in an absolute perfectionism trap whilst trying to write about.
I mean,
perfectionism.
You couldn't make it up, could you?
So you couldn't make it up. I mean, sometimes you literally did just have to laugh at myself. But I think on another level, it was sort of, in some ways, it was interesting live research. And I do think there's something about knowing the topic from the inside out. I don't have to write about me, but there's something about my relationship to the topic that it's not only academic, that I think has to be useful.
And you've got that multiple aspects of you. So you are a practitioner, you're a leader, you're a writer. Is it different at all in those different applications? Are there different challenges?
Definitely. I mean, I think there's a big thing that was different. If I go back to start of whenever it was, 2023, when I started writing Coach Yourself Confident, the huge difference was I had no evidence to support confidence as a writer. So I was a beginner. And I do think, if I reflect on the ups and downs of my confidence through the process, one of the things that I was able to do pretty well at the outset was make the distinction in my own mind between, I'm a beginner and therefore I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. It's unreasonable to expect myself to know what I'm doing. And the feeling of being an imposter, which would have sounded more like, if I was any good as an author, I'd just be able to do this. This would be easy. And I think, actually, I'm really pleased that I was able to avoid inflicting the sort of pain associated with that second position, the imposter view, and instead lean into, I'm learning at this. I'm learning every day. And it's unreasonable to expect myself to just be brilliant and write brilliant stuff first off. Like, that's not
Even just articulating that difference is really helpful, isn't it? Because you become fused with the I'm rubbish at this story.
Yes, and that's not really massively motivational.
It's not terribly helpful, no.
As you're sort of sitting in front of your laptop, then it doesn't really bode for a good. But
of course, as you're writing your first book and the first draft, you're comparing that with the finished, polished edition of Simon Sinek or whoever you have on your bookshelf who's written I don't know how many books before, and you're like, well, it's not like that. It should be like that. So that gap between what you see other people writing, because you don't see their first draft, and what you see yourself writing is huge, isn't it?
I mean, it is huge, and I think that talks to, as you know, I talk about saboteurs in that first book, and one of them is comparisonitis. And of course, that would be an utterly unfair comparison to reach for any of the many books that I've got on my shelf and compare my first thoughts to what has been printed, because it's it's like apples and oranges. It's like apples and koalas. Like, it's just completely, it's so different. It's an unfair comparison. And I think there were other saboteurs that were so. Comparisonitis is a watch out, and I don't think that one hooked me. So I think I was able to look at finished books and use them as kind of inspiration rather than
To beat yourself around the head with. Yeah.
exactly, yes. But there were other saboteurs that I had much more of a battle with. A card carrying perfectionist, I would say that is tricky. So being a beginner book writer and being a perfectionist, they don't necessarily sit together comfortably. And I've said to so many people that the single most useful piece of advice was something that you said back in the boot camp, and you shared the Anne Lamott quote about shitty first drafts. So all good writers write shitty first drafts, etc., etc. And I then had on a post-it, a literal post-it, the aim is a shitty first draft, and I attached it to my monitor and it stayed there, in fact, throughout the whole process. And I just found that really liberating, that reminder of it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be good. Like the aim is just to write, just some words, just some thoughts, just some messages, because once you've got that, it's so much easier to edit. So that literal permission giving post-it was probably the most useful counter to my perfectionism.
I love that. Tell us about the other saboteurs.
Gosh, there's some of them. Oh, so I had quite a dialogue with my inner critic. So the inner critic is another saboteur that if we listen to it, it's that unhelpful voice of doubt that runs a kind of commentary in our heads. And I don't think I had much of my inner critic didn't sort of keep up a commentary on, who are you to write a book? Because I was sort of okay with that. I was still, with the, I'm a beginner. I can try this. That's fine. But it did have quite a point of view on, sections that I'd written, and often would be quite vocal, middle of the night with, helpful evaluations like that's a bit sloppy, or what point are you actually trying to make there? That wasn't very conducive to either confidence or sleep. So I guess that was a good example of deploying some of the things that I then was writing about. So this whole kind of idea of distancing myself from my inner critic, kind of, thank you. I sort of understand you're trying to keep me safe. You don't want me to make an absolute fool of myself, but I'm choosing to give this a go. And slightly laughing at, I call him
Yes.
Nigel. So one of the things I is calling your
All
inner
right,
critic Nigel, or
yeah.
not call it Nigel, calling your inner critic something. And so I'm able to distance myself a bit from the words that Nigel has to
at 3 in the morning.
offer.
Yeah, bless him.
Yes. Yes.
Was it second time round? So tell me about the trajectory of your own confidence. I mean, winning multiple awards, it has got to help with that, right?
Well, you'd think, right?
Well, I would, but then I'm second guessing you, and I'm thinking maybe it just sets you up for the difficult second album thing. I don't know. Yeah,
exactly that. I would say exactly that. So I think some aspects were easier, and just that I knew what I was doing in a way that I didn't know what I was doing first time around. I was learning all the time at every stage. Some aspects were the same. I still heard quite a lot from Nigel. I still battled my perfectionism. I still battled FOPO, which maybe we can come back to in a moment. But the thing that was different second time around was that second album thing, was the fear of failure, that somehow, it reared its head much more, because I knew that I could write a book, but there was a doubt about, can I write another good book? Like have I expended all of my good book writing energy? It's like, it's done. I've come to the end of it. What if this one is disappointing? What if I've set up a promise with the first one that is not fulfilled with the second one? So there was actually a sort of new reason to second guess myself, which is ironic. You'd think, success should help, but it kind of didn't.
But I think the lesson here is like anything is fodder for the fear, isn't it? You can tell yourself any kind of story about any kind of evidence, and as long as you recognize it's a story, then you're on your way to actually being able to perform.
Yes, yes. And it was and most of the time I can sort of I did know it was a story. I did recognize that. There was a moment, and you'll remember this because one of the things I did was reach out to you and go, Alison, help. But there was a particular moment where I think I was very fearful that maybe actually it's rubbish, was when I got feedback from the beta readers. So this is a second book. My second draft went out to a group of beta readers, and I got loads and loads of useful feedback back. Some of that useful feedback was quite challenging, and the first time round with book one, I actually found that a really positive and uplifting process, like from start to finish, because I knew that what I wanted was feedback. I knew it wasn't finished. And so everything was received as really valuable. The second time round, actually, I had a massive confidence dip. There was some of that challenging feedback that now I can see as incredibly useful. At the time, really triggered an enormous wobble, and I questioned the whole thing. It's like, well, maybe it's just the wrong book, and I'm rooting for the wrong people, and it's the wrong this, and it's the wrong that. So it was a stronger reaction, in fact, a new reaction to beta read feedback that second time around.
It's interesting as well because I happen to have been in on a fairly early stage of this book because you were doing the first draft of the second book at Write It Wild. And what I noticed was how much you enjoyed it. And I don't think you enjoyed it quite that much first time round. And I'm really interested whether that was the just, I'm no longer such a beginner and I'm enjoying my growing proficiency at this, or was it just because you were sitting outside in a beautiful place? I don't know.
I think there was a lot to do with sitting outside at a beautiful place. It was just an incredible setting. I think also because this book is about leadership, in some ways it's in my kind of happy place. That is the territory that I spend my days in. I'm alongside leaders and leadership teams. So I think there's something about the territory that I was venturing into that felt really, I'm not sure familiar is the right word, but I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a place that I like to go. And perhaps I think also I had learned some ways of writing. I think maybe some of the things that I'd learned from the first time and then honed the second time, I was certainly quicker to get into just writing a load of words. So probably 90% of what I wrote at Write It Wild does not appear in the final book. But I knew that what I was writing it, and that's all part of it. And I was kind of entirely up for that. So I think maybe you can lean into the joy
And
a
that's
bit
what I
more.
really noticed. And I'm just remembering you used the analogy of sort of freewheeling downhill and feeling almost guilty that you were enjoying it so much and you were finding it so easy. And I'm like, look, there's going to be loads of uphill in this journey. Just enjoy the downhill. And you almost like gave yourself permission just to put the worry, the perfectionism, everything to one side and just enjoy that kind of blurting of it all out just to get the first shitty draft out.
Definitely. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't you? Why would you put yourself through writing a book if you're not going to find enjoyment in it? And there is something quite ironic, isn't there, about it? It was almost like I was scrabbling around for something to be concerned about. Like, should I be enjoying it this much? Is there something wrong here?
It's so funny, isn't it? First I was concerned because it was hard work. Now it's easy and I'm really worried. Some people just never happy. Flipping perfectionists. I always ask people for their best tip for somebody who's writing a book, Julie. I've already asked you this. So I wonder, do you want to just revisit that question again, or is there something specific to a second book or even just confidence that you'd like to come back to?
I think if I think about the tips that I've given anyone, lots of people ask once you've got a book out there, lots of people ask, and the two things that I find myself saying a lot, one is the post-it with the shitty first draft on it. We've talked about that. The other is not to try and do it on your own, is to do it in community. Yeah. And I think there is something really important theme about confidence in community. And that's lots of different ways. So there's the brilliant community that you have built, there's your team, there's other people who are writing a book and are at a similar time, there's the leaders who are interviewed, because not only do I think what was interesting to me was I got stories from them and I got really useful content, but I also just got a whole load of
Yes.
motivation and encouragement and sort of
Energy,
energy
excitement, just
from
interest, all of that kind of keeps you going, doesn't it, when your own energy fails you?
it
Mm,
really does. It really does. So there's lots of ways that probably the big thing I learned was it in my head writing a book was quite a solo task, and it's just not, or it certainly doesn't need to be. And I think any book is a better book from being written around and with other people in lots of different ways.
yeah, brilliant tip. Thank you. And I always ask people, as you know, again, to recommend a book. What have you read recently that you'd recommend to us?
Oh gosh, what have I read recently that I recommend? Well, I've got one that I've reread recently, and then I'll see if something else pops into mind. One that I've reread recently is called Not Knowing, and it's by Stephen D'Souza and Diana Renner. And it's brilliant. I love it for lots of reasons. I think it's so current. I can't believe I think it's about 10 years old, but it feels so current because it really is about leaning into curiosity rather than certainty, and questions rather than answers, and perhaps loosening our grip on the need to kind of find stuff out and get to find stability and certainty that is probably false. Lean into doubt, lean into questions, and also the format's great. So I think it's lots and lots of chapters. They're all less than 5 pages long, and there's lots of lovely graphics in it. So it's just a kind of an enjoyable read. And then the other one that I've not finished it yet, but I'm partway through, Flourish by Daniel
Yeah.
Coyle. I
He,
think he's brilliant. I
yeah.
find he's so easy to read. I think that's the thing. It's both fascinating content, really good, interesting research conveyed in a way that I sort of feel like I'm reading
Yeah.
fiction.
Right,
There's
so
no
well. Yeah, if you haven't read his book on culture, do. It's so well done.
It's brilliant. I mean, that is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, the
Culture
Culture
Code, yeah.
Code. Is that the one? Yeah. Talent Code's good as well. Basically anything by Daniel
Yeah.
Coyle is a high
I mean,
recommend.
formerly of this
Yeah.
podcast as well, so you might want to go back and listen to him. Yeah, so talk to Daniel Coyle. He's very, very interesting to talk to. Brilliant. Great recommendations. Thank you very much. Julie, if people want to find out more about you, more about Coach Self-Confident, more about Contagious Confidence, more about Talent Sprout, where should they go?
Yeah, so 2 places. First of all, my website, so that's talentsprout.co.uk. Sprout as in growth, I always feel the need to say, rather than as a vegetable, Brussels sprout and all that, but talentsprout.co.uk. And then from a social media perspective, I hang out on LinkedIn. So there are unsurprisingly quite a lot of people called Julie Smith, but if you put Julie Smith Talent Sprout, you'll find me.
I share your pain as a Jones. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not sure about naming any business after a vegetable, but if you were going to choose a vegetable, sprout would probably not be it, would it?
No, but talent carrot doesn't really
No,
work.
really not. No.
Sort of work.
I love it. Right. Thank you so much, Julie. It was great to talk to you again. Great to dig into not just the writing, but the sort of the meta level of writing about a topic and experiencing the topic at the same time, and how you develop alongside your book. I think that's a beautiful picture. So thank you.
Thank you.